want to bring in Slobodan Simonovic. He is the Director of Engineering and a professor with the University of Western Ontario. Thank you so much, Slobodan, first of all, for taking the time to speak with us. I believe it's called Western University now. I am an alum, so good to have you on with us today. You know, the flooding, the hurricane that hit Nova Scotia and the Atlantic provinces earlier in the fall, the windstorms that we've seen in different parts of the country, all these things have shown how vulnerable our infrastructure can be to all these different natural disasters. In Nova Scotia in particular, what do you see as issues when it comes to infrastructure, and what can be done to make it more resilient to this extreme weather?
Well, that's a pretty good observation, and I think it's really applicable to the whole country. We are kind of facing situations where more extreme weather events are hitting our infrastructure, and the process how the infrastructure is planned, designed, and then developed relies on the information from the past. Through the kind of statistical analysis, this information is converted into indicators, engineering basically size of the pieces of infrastructure that you are designing. This is not applicable anymore. The point is that the past is not being or not reflecting the future conditions, and the change is there. We observe that events are becoming more frequent, very strong rainfall or heat waves and floods and droughts and so on. And also the magnitude of these events are becoming larger. So we need to change the practice by simply looking how to bring these potentially future conditions or changing conditions into the process of designing and developing, monitoring, and managing the infrastructure.
We've seen roads washed out by floodwaters, by rains, by storms. Starting with something basic like a road, like the way roads have been constructed in our country, in different parts of the country, especially near bodies of water, how can we rethink that? What kinds of things need to be done differently?
There are a number of things we can do. The first important thing is that we have to modify the process of determining what is the kind of event you're designing the infrastructure for. We use in engineering something like, 100-year flood or 50-year flood. That means basically the event that has a probability of 1 over 100 to occur every year. And 100-year flood is based on this kind of historical information. And if you look at ahead and changing conditions, that 100-year may not be 100 anymore. It may be, much more frequent, like 75, 50, 35. And that's what is actually representing the change that needs to be implemented in using this and developing these standards and criteria. The second potential way is to look at the different materials and options, look for innovative solutions. The municipalities are definitely more vulnerable because you have more paved areas, and bringing the green infrastructure, trying to increase infiltration or the capacity of the soil to absorb this rain is essential. And I think there are many other smaller options that we can kind of explore along the way, like using innovative materials, and things like that.
So Slobodan, is it a matter of improving what we already have, or in some instances with certain types of infrastructure, I'm thinking even power lines, the grid that we have, do we have to start from scratch?
Okay, so for designing a new infrastructure and implementing new infrastructure for meeting the future needs of the population, I think we have to have modified approach and use all the information, modify the information in such a way that we include potentially these more frequent and larger events. With dealing with existing infrastructure, we have to be prepared in a way to absorb the potential impacts of these events. So that means either strengthening the infrastructure or developing the procedure and methodologies that we can implement when the events hit, being prepared in a way of moving the people from hubs, trying to bring the infrastructure additions and modifications to strengthen and increase the capacity of the infrastructure.
Slobodan, we could go on for a very long time here, but unfortunately we are out of time. We thank you so much for yours and for sharing your insights with us. Slobodan Simonovic with Western University.
Very welcome. Thank you for having me on.
You're welcome.